I was straightening up some things in my office, and I had this stack of affirmation cards. And as I'm putting them on the shelf, the first one that I saw had an affirmation about letting go. And sometimes I use a tarot deck for like a word of the day to help guide me. And the other day I picked up a card, and in most decks it's called the death card. In my deck it's called death and rebirth. And the affirmation is all about letting go. So I thought, okay, I probably should talk about this topic. So you probably have had this happen, that someone says something that hurts your feelings, or you feel guilty about something that you did or didn't do or wished you had done, or someone criticized you and it sparks a memory of being 10 years old when you were criticized. And so you're talking to a friend to vent, and they say, oh, just let it go. Well, if it's sticking with you, you can't just let it go. And I don't know if when you were a kid, people said this, but when I was a kid, I remember the kid version of saying, oh, just let it go, is if someone says something that hurts your feelings, you say, I'm rubber and you're glue, anything you say bounces off me and sticks to you. I know some of you heard that before. Well, what if you feel more like glue than like rubber, and it sticks to you instead of sticking to them? And in the field of psychology, that's called perseverating. I learned that from one of my psychologist sisters. When you keep going over and over something that sticks with you, and if you think about the word persevere, it's the same root as the word perseverate. It means that something sticks with you. And in my belief system, there is a purpose for everything. So if there's something that's sticking with you, like a thought you can't get out of your mind, a feeling that you can't seem to shake off, it's sticking with you because it needs your attention. So just like when a kid is crying, I guess once upon a time the philosophy was you just let the kid lie there and cry. But that's not the current philosophy, because that leaves kids feeling insecure and scared. And so if a child is crying, you see what they need. Are they hungry? Do they need to be changed? Do they need to be held? And you listen to their cry because it's crying for something, and then you give the child what he or she needs. Well, I think that same thing is true of our thoughts and feelings. When we can't get them out of our mind, or can't get them out of our emotional system, it's because they're crying for attention, and so we need to pay attention. And as Beth said, I do a lot of work with dreams, and people who practice lucid dreaming, which means being aware in a dream that you're dreaming, if there's some monster or evil person or something scary that's after you in a dream, instead of killing it, which would be kind of like avoiding a thought to say, oh, just get it out of your mind, or trying to get away from it, which is like avoiding that feeling or thought, the philosophy is you turn and face whatever that scary evil thing or person is, and you say, who are you and what do you need? And when in a dream you are curious and say, who are you and what do you need, the whole dream changes. It changes from being a nightmare, it changes from being scary, because that person or monster or whatever the bad presence is will tell you what it needs. And I think that same thing is what we need to do in our waking life, is to really listen to what those thoughts are and what those feelings are, so we can find out what they're telling us. So I'm going to give you some examples. Some of them might seem kind of mundane, some maybe a little bit bigger, but I think the mundane things are important because those are the everyday kinds of experiences that are here to teach us lessons. So a couple of weeks ago, I stopped at the grocery store on my way home from an exercise class. And when I go to an exercise class, I wear a t-shirt and leggings, like yoga pants. So the t-shirt I was wearing that day says American Cancer Society, and I got it when I was doing a fundraising walk for the American Cancer Society. So I'm going to put my card away, And this young woman who collects the cards walks up to me, and she saw the t-shirt and she said, oh, my mother had cancer. She had breast cancer, and then it spread to her lymph nodes, and then it metastasized to her bones, and even though she went through chemo, she ended up going into her kidneys and then into her liver, and she was on chemotherapy, and it was really bad. And I'm sitting there like absorbing all of this and trying to keep my own imagination from going crazy, because I had breast cancer a few years ago, and it did not metastasize, for which I am very grateful. But when I hear stories like that, it makes it kind of hard for me to stay calm and realize this is not me, it's her. You know, and if I told someone about it, they would say, oh, the way it wasn't you, it was her. But it was me. I was in the situation. And so I'm still kind of reflecting on the experiences I have like this, which happen fairly often. And I think it's because I'm a good listener, so I'm kind of a magnet for people who need to talk. Like, what do I say? I don't even know this woman, so I don't want to be mean to her, and I don't want to be rude and say, stop! But at the same time, I don't want to keep absorbing all of her scary, horrible thoughts about her mother's cancer and how it's spread all over the place. So I've been kind of rehearsing things that I could say in situations like that, such as, I'm sure that was really difficult for you. I'm really not in the position that I can listen right now. Or, I know that was really hard for you. I mean, if I don't know her, I probably wouldn't say, well, I have cancer too, and so I don't want to hear it, because that would probably just stimulate her to talk more about it. It seems like if some people find out that you've had a similar illness, problem, whatever, they kind of take it as an invitation to say, oh, we're going to have connection by talking about our cancer. We're going to have a shared connection by talking about our parents' deaths, which is not always the kind of connection that we might want. So the point of that in terms of letting go is that I have not completely let go of this experience, because I have not come to a place of resolve in myself about a good way to respond to that. And I know that's why that situation was in my life, and why I continue to have situations like that, because there's something that I need to learn about how to be kind and compassionate, and at the same time have enough of a sense of self to separate when I need to separate. So, another example of things that we need to let go are physical things. So in our day and age, there's a big kind of PR about decluttering and getting rid of things. And there's a certain philosophy that does not really work for me, that you take hold of the thing you're trying to declutter and you say, does this spark joy? And if it doesn't spark joy, then you get rid of it. Well, this is why this doesn't work for me, is that I don't think things in themselves spark joy or spark sadness. I think it's what those things mean, or the significance that they have, that stimulates the sadness or joy. And the other reason why it doesn't work is that I don't think life is so black and white. Like, I don't think there's any experience that's 100% joy or 100% grief. It's always blended. So I have a photograph. I really love the photograph, and I actually got it printed on a canvas. I was going to bring it, and I forgot it with my people stuff that's sitting by my front door. Anyway, it's Bruges, Belgium is this beautiful little town that some people liken to Venice because it has these canals. So it's a photograph I took when I was there, 2019. And it shows, it's from a bridge, and it shows the canals. And I went to Bruges after a conference that I had attended that was in the Netherlands, and spent a day there. And so when I look at this photograph, I would say 80% of it sparks joy, because I loved being there. It's a beautiful place. It's famous not only for the canals, but handmade lace, delicious homemade chocolate. It's got a not a pavilion, but kind of a central courtyard that has shops around it, and it has these cathedrals, and you see people with their artist easels in the courtyard painting. So I have very much joy in those memories. And so the picture evokes probably 80% of that. And it also evokes about 20% regret, because I went to Bruges not for a vacation. I went there after this conference I attended and spent a day there, and I wish I had spent more time vacationing around the conference. And part of why that's so significant to me is that's kind of a lifelong pattern, that to give myself permission to do things purely recreational is kind of a stretch. And I would like it not to be so much of a stretch and something that I can 100% enjoy, instead of thinking, oh, I should be getting back to work. Oh, I shouldn't be taking this so much time off. And so for me, sometimes holding on to things that have so-called negative connotations serve as a positive reminder of some kind of change that I want to make. So another thing that people oftentimes say let go of are emotions that are sometimes called lower vibration. And I've talked about this before, but just like the rainbow has all of the colors and the chakras have all of these vibrations, I do not think higher or lower is a judgment. I think they are all part of our experience. So when we experience things like sadness, resentment, anger that people consider bad, that we should let go of, I think it's very important that we experience those things because of what they have to offer to us. And I know that in many holy works, the people who are considered enlightened or evolved experience all of these emotions. Like there's a somewhat well-known passage in the Bible. After Lazarus dies, his sisters, Mother and Mary, are grieving for him, and Jesus, this verse is famous because it's supposedly the shortest verse in the Bible. It says, Jesus wept. So Jesus was sad, even though he knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. Instead of saying, oh, you shouldn't be sad because it's just the body that dies and his spirit is going to be eternal. He didn't say that. He wept. He felt the sadness. And then he raised Lazarus from the dead. And then he said, let go, because Lazarus let go of the physical body. In my experience, in order to let go, you have to first experience the feeling. So when I was 15, my father died, and because of my parents' beliefs about religion, they didn't have a religion at that point, they didn't believe in religion, we didn't have a funeral, and he died during the summer, and I remember going back to school, and it was between 10th and 11th grade. You know, kids say, how was your summer? And I said, oh, it was fine. I didn't say, well, my father died over the summer, because I didn't really know how to talk about it, and we didn't have counseling, and so I never really got to experience the deep sadness and grief, and so instead, it became kind of a numbness that stayed with me for a very long time, like a numbness that turned into depression. And I believe that that's what happens when people are talked out of their grief. Like when my husband died, I remember seeing somebody soon afterwards, and she said, oh, you just need to keep yourself really busy. Meaning you just need to distract yourself, don't feel it, you know, get all involved in these other things, which doesn't help. It helps to be able to really experience the depth of feeling, because also in my experience, the depth of grief goes along with the depth of love. That's what the grief is. So I kind of like acronyms, and so I just want to give you, with the words let go, some simple ways that you can practice that. So the L in let go stands for label. And part of what helps us to let go of things is to change how we label ourselves. So someone, for example, who has a hard time getting rid of stuff. If they say, oh, I'm a slob, oh, I'm so scattered, oh, I'm so disorganized, that label is going to make it even harder for them to go through and separate their things. Maybe the truth is, I'm really creative, and because I'm creative, there's a lot of things that I have. I see one creative person back there nodding. I can relate to that. So you need to be aware of the label so then you can use that for your benefit. The E I just talked about is to embrace the experience and the emotion. Instead of talking yourself out of it, avoiding it, denying it, saying, oh, that's a lower vibration, so it's not good, so you should be above all of that. You have to feel it to be able to heal it. The T is for transform, and this is maybe one of the more challenging elements, is that, especially in terms of things that people say to us that kind of stick with us, things that we feel criticized by, it's a kind of normal human tendency to blame the other person and say, oh, it's just them. But if it was just them, it wouldn't really stick with us. So we need to be aware of what is it in me that's making that stick so I can change. So I told you about this trip that I took where I didn't really allow myself to spend as much recreational time as I wanted to. I spent many years working very, very long hours, being sleep deprived, and kind of resenting the people who I felt were pressuring me to do that. And they might have been pressuring me, but I was the one that accepted the pressure. I could have done something different and said, I'm taking these extra 2 days off. I'm doing whatever I'm going to do. So I was the one that needed to change to be able to say, this isn't working for me anymore, and so I'm going to do something different. And when I finally did that, then all of the blame, all of the resentment, I was able to let go of, because I could admit that it takes two to tango. And that's true in any situation. So the G is for growth. And in any situation, I always think there's something that we can learn. You know, I talked about the situation with the grocery cart lady. I know that there's some personal growth for me in being able to find different ways to communicate in those situations. And the more that I can ask, okay, how do I need to use this to grow, then the easier it is to let go. And then the O is to be open to new perspectives, new ways of looking at things. So this is kind of a mundane example, but I went the other day for a haircut, and it was a new hairdresser, and she said, how much do you want cut off, like about ½ an inch? I said, yeah, ½ an inch would be good. So those of you who know me know that my hair was down to here, and I saw the first snip of hair, which was 2½, maybe 3 inches, and it's like, once the 2½ and 3 inches is gone, you just have to go with it. And so when it was all said and done, she cut anywhere from 3 to 5 inches from my hair. And I spent the whole evening being so mad about it, and I thought, okay, Laurel, you cannot glue the hair back on. I could get a wig, but I don't really feel like wearing a wig. And so now it's been 2 days now, 3 days as of today. When I look in the mirror, I just have to be open to a new perspective of how I look, and be open to thinking, wow, I have short hair. I haven't had short hair since I don't know how long. Wow, I look kind of like I did when I was 6. So, the more open I can be to a new perspective, the more I can appreciate it, and the more I can gracefully receive it when people say, oh, I like it, you know, whether they actually do or not, or they're just saying that. So, I just want to give one other example of being open. This one is a little more serious. I belong to some meetup groups, and a couple of years ago I set up an event that was meeting at a park for an outdoor concert that was free. And in hosting a meetup, I got there first, and I had a big tarp on the ground so people could find us. And everybody who had signed up found us except for this one woman. And I got a message from her, and so I messaged her back, and then I asked her for her phone number, and I called her. She was somewhere on the edge of the park. I said, tell me where you are and I'll come find you. So I went to look for her. I didn't find her. She said, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. I found some friends of mine, I'll sit with them. And I said, okay. So then just the other day, 2 years later, someone else in the same meetup group was hosting an event at a park, and she said, I want to carpool because the last time there was an event like this, I couldn't find anyone, and Laurel hosted it. And so when she put my name in there, I thought, wow, she is mad at me still. And so I was going to message back in that group. I thought, that is not a good way to resolve something. So I sent her a private text and said, you know, I saw your message, and I get the feeling that you're feeling resentful. Do we need to talk about it? Do you want to meet? And so we texted back and forth, and she said something that had never even occurred to me. She said, I got there, I couldn't find everybody. She's a person of color. She said, everybody else there was white, and they were all looking at me. And so when I found my friends, I stayed with them, and I thought, oh my God, I had no idea. And if I had known, I would have, this was 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I would have said, you know, can we meet and can we talk about it? And so I am now much more open to a different perspective. And even though she said it's fine, everything's resolved, after the holiday weekend is over, I plan to call her and take her out to lunch so that, I mean, maybe she doesn't want to talk about it, but the point of being open is that people have very different perspectives, and sometimes we may have no idea what is going on with someone else. And so that's an important part of letting go. So I just want to leave you with this thought that comes from that death and rebirth card I talked about, which is all about letting go. You are on the cusp of a massive transformation, and it's time to mourn the end of one phrase while celebrating the birth of another. The energy of transmutation and rebirth signals a beautiful metamorphosis that will allow you to expand your consciousness and move closer to your divine essence. This heralds exciting times filled with the brightness of so much potential. New light awaits.